Welcome to this course, Front-End Development. Now we'll be diving into a demo project to emphasize on all the learning we have been learning. So here we are in our HTML file. Here is my CSS file, and here is my index.js. That is my JavaScript file. So now let's proceed. We want to build a calculator app, a little calculator app that can help us to calculate, to do our addition, subtraction, multiplication, and the rest. So how are we going to do it? We're going to start with what? Our container. Let's say dot container. That is what we're going to wrap all the content in the web page. So here I proceed with my calculator, right? So here I proceed with my div with class name of what? Display, class name of display. Then next is what? My main. So here is what I'm going to house all my buttons. That is the buttons that contain some of those numbers and some of those what? Operators. So here I'm going to have my class name, a general class name that can use to access all the buttons at once. So here I have item, this, then items, 18. So you can see what I have, right? So I can decide to separate it so that it will look good. All right, so see what I have here. By my right, I have a unique class name called items. Then by my left, I have an individual class name, which is item without S, and then with the number attached to it. So here for the first D, it is item 1, this item 2, item 3, and so on. So, but here we have a general class name that unify all of them together. So let's proceed. So here I will have, let's say my number, let's say 7. Then the next one I will have 8. Next one I will have 9. Then the next one I will have my delete button. So the next one I will have 4. Following I have 5. Following I will have 6. Following I will have plus, my plus sign. Following I will have 1. Following I will have 2. Following I will have 3. So the next I will have minus. The next I will have my dots. The next I will have 0. The next I will have my division sign, right? Then the next I will have my multiplication sign. Then the last two, my reset, that is when I want to maybe wipe all the number or all the characters in the screen. So then the last one is now my what? Equality sign, right? So let's quickly go to our browser and see what we have. So you see what we have, but then here this is just the word, the structure. This is just the HTML only. So I can decide to add some let's say beautification, just to make it something enticing in the eyes. So I can decide to just add a theme. That is where I can toggle individual colors, right? So I can proceed with something like dot selector as the div, right? So here I will have my, let's say, button, let's say up to 2 times. So the first one, so here this my button should have a class of what? Line. And then the second one should have a class of, let's say, class of what? Title, right? And then this one should have, let's say, span into 3. So here I will have 1, I will have 2, and I will have 3, right? So the same thing applicable to this side. So I will have span into 3, but nothing should be inside, right? So if you go to our browser, you see have something like this, right? Very good. So with this, we have come to the end of this video. In our next video, we are going to proceed with what? The styling. So thank you for watching this video and stay tuned in order to see the next video. Bye. Hello, welcome once again. So we continue with our project. Remember in our previous video, we talked about the HTML, the structure, when we are trying to build our what? Our calculator app. So you can remember something like this, right? So now we are going to style our calculator. So remember, here is my CSS page and here is my HTML page. So what I have to do is to link my CSS with what? My HTML. So I have something like this. So it's already linked. So over there in my CSS, so I'm going to first declare a. So here I have my padding to be 0, margin to be 0, and box sizing should be what? Border box. So here what I'm trying to do is just to to remove the default browser padding and margin, because if not so, that means to affect my own style in a way. So just to neutralize the default browser padding and margin, so I have to do this. So this is what the universal selector. So now I'm not proceeding with what? My calculator. So first I'm going to do my container. Yes, I'm going to start my container first. So I'm going to do something like container should have the height of what? Let's say 100 view heights, right? Then the width, let's say the width should be 100%. Then the next one is, let's give it a flex, that is display or flex. Then align items center, then justify content center, right? So over there in our browser, you see what we have, right? But it's not looking fine, so we continue. Now what we're going to start is our what? Our calculator. Now we are going to start our what? Our calculator, right? So we have our calculator here. So what we're going to do first, let's give it the height of 500 pesos. And then next one is width of, let's say 350 pesos. Then let's give it border and know whether if what we are doing is actually working, right? So over there we have something like this. Okay, let's continue. So we continue. The next properties to show is what? Display, but now it's going to be flex still. So display of what? Flex. Then flex direction. Which direction do we want it to go? We want it to go the direction of what? Column. Then we don't give it a gap because there are other content inside. So we have what to space out. So gap should be 10 pesos. And then padding should be what? 10 pesos, not 0%. I mean 10 pesos. And then the next one, we give it a background color. Let's give it a background color, you know. So background color should be, there's a color code. So I have my hash 3B for 8, sorry, 4646, no, 64664, something like this. Now the color should be white. The color, sorry, I have my color should be what? White. Okay, I have my color should be what? White, right? So this is what I have. So let's go over there. You see how it's looking. So let's proceed because we are not yet done. So the next one we are going to go with is what? Our select. Our selector. Remember, our selector is something like this because CSS is cascading styles, so it's taking it one after the other. So we're going to style the next one, which is the selector. So now over there in our styling, we have our dot selector, right? So we have our dot selector. Okay, which height are we going to give it? Let's give it height of 50 pesos, weight of 80 pesos, display flex, then first direction column, then align. So what next are we going to give it? Let's give it a align self so that it's going to align self to be what? Flex end, and then gap should be, let's say, 5 pesos or so. So let's see what we are doing over there in our browser. So you see, here is the selector. Remember that there are two buttons in the selector, so that's why I'm saying something like this. So okay, let's proceed. So now the next thing you have is one of the div. One of those buttons with class name. Remember what I mean by those buttons? I mean this. You have two buttons, one with class name of line and second with class name of what? Title. So we want to style the two. So but now let's start with what? That of title. So I want this button with class name of title to have a background color of what? Let me see the same color code. So I have 191F32. Sorry, 32, something like this, right? So now let me combine dot title and dot line. I would like you to have height of 20 pesos, then display of what? Flex, then align items of center, padding. I want padding to be 1 peso and then 3 pesos as the case may be. Then the next one is justify content. Justify content should be space around. I can choose space between, depends. Then the other one is border radius. I can set to give it border radius. Why border radius? So it will have a very smooth curve, smooth edge curve. So I can have border radius to be 5 pesos. Then cursor, because it's button, it should be pointer. Okay, so over there in our browser, let's see what we're doing. So you can see how it's looking. It's not taking shape, right? So we can decide to remove the border. Let's say border should be what? None. Okay, we have something like this. So you can hover, if you hover on this, see how it is, right? So okay, so the next one is, let's proceed with our span tag. Remember, we have a span tag inside the title, right? So this, because over there in our browser we are not seeing anything that looks like span, right? So let's tie it. So what we're going to do now is to call the name of that div, that is title, and then span. So here, so we are calling it, this is a descendant selector, right? So we are calling it, that is saying the child element of this div. So what we're going to do here now is to call a height of, we want it to have a height of 15 pesos and then width of 15 pesos. Okay, then border radius of what? 100%. Sorry, 100%. So over there in our browser, we cannot see it because it doesn't have color, right? So, but if you decide to give it color, let's say background color. So let's say background color should be red. So we are going to see it, right? But we don't need the background color right now. So we are going to remove it. So we are going to proceed with another thing. So I want to make it in such a way that you have title, span, then nth child, right? Nth child should be what? Number one. And then we have something like this. So we have the background color. Background color should be the same color code. We have D D13F F30, no? So something like this. So with this, let's see how it is in our browser. So you see, I'm able to select number one, the first child element, right? So basically I'm done with this. So let's go with our screen. Our screen is here where we're going to be seeing our characters. So here, let's proceed with styling our screen. So what do we have our screen? Our screen have the class name of what? Display, right? So which height are we going to give it? Let's give it height of what? 70 pesos, not 60, but 70 pesos. Then background color, let's give it background color of let's say background of another color code. I think something like this. So next one, then color should be white, right? So we have display property to display to be flex, and the next one is align items center, then justify content flex end, and then padding should be 10 pesos, 10 pesos and 15 pesos. So over there you see at least our calculator is not taking shape. So here is considered as the screen. So whenever we are inputting our characters, it will be aligning here because that is the essence of this align items and justify content flex end. So because by default, all div align their content from what? From the left hand side. So with this property, so it will align at what? Right hand side, just exactly as the calculator normally be. So now let's proceed with styling our main, that is this angle. Remember, we are done styling from here to here. So now we are focusing on what? On this and this. So let's move over to our css. So here in our css, let's go further. So let's call our div main, right? So let's have a height of what? 350 pesos. So make sure the height doesn't contradict with the parent container. So height should be what? 350. So now, okay, let's proceed. Display, let's set the display to grid, right? Yes, because we are dealing with so many items here and we want to space them out accordingly. So now display of grid, then grid template column, deep template column. So we are going to use repeat on 4 column, then 1 fr, that is 1 fractional unit, right? So second one, we have gap. We want it to give gap of 10 pesos, right? Then what else? We talk of padding should be what? 10 pesos. And then let's give it its own background color, you know. So background color should be that the same color code, something like this. So over there, you see what we have. Our calculator is taking shape. So we proceed because we are not yet done, right? So the next thing we're going to start is our item. That is this. Remember, they have a unique name, items. So what we are going to do now, we are going to style the items. So we have our items, sorry, is a class name, so I have to indicate with dot. So we have our items. So what else do we have? We have height to be what? 50 pesos. Then let's say, what else should we give it? Background color should be white, Let's say white. Okay. And then color. The color should be what? The same color code. Okay. Just to beautify our, So the next one is now the font weight. The font weight, you can decide to make it bolder so that it will be bolder. The text will be bolder. Then the next one is to give it a box shadow. So our box shadow, we're going to give it something like 0, then 4 pixels and gray. Right? So the next property is what we call the border radius. So the border radius, let's give it to be 6 pixels. Right? So the next one is display of grid. Display of grid. Right? Then the next one is place content center. Okay, center, and then cursor pointer. So here we have something like this. So this is why we make use of display of grid so that we can place, because if I should remove these two property, you see how it's going to center all the numbers, right? All these contents. So with these two property, display grid and then place content center, make it to what comes to the center, right? But then if you notice there are spaces here remaining, there are spaces here. So we want these two to occupy these two spaces, right? We want them to occupy these two spaces. So what we are going to do is, remember here in my HTML, all of them have a unified class name, but then they have their own individual class name. So over here in my CSS, I'm going to call them by their individual class name. So I will have dot item what 17, right? That is second to the last. So what did I want you to do? I want you to have a grid column. Yeah, grid column of what? 1 span to what? Column 3. Or let's say column 2, right? Then after spanning to column 2, I want to give you a different background color. I want to give you a different background color. And then the background color should be, I think I should give you a color code. That is hash 6447. No? Okay, something like this. Okay. But it's not giving me what I want. I have, let's say, 298. Okay, so something like this. And then color should be what? White. So if you go over there in my browser, you see the thing was able to span. So this is function of, this is the effect of what? Grid property. So the same thing will be applicable to what? Item 18. So item 18, so we want it to be to span to what? 3, right? And then to have this of, let's say, red and color white. So we have something like this. No, to span from column 3, span to that of 2. Okay, let's go. Okay, we have something like this. So we can see it like this. We have to span from column 3 to that of 2, right? So let's color this one. I think this should be item 1, 2, 3, 4. So item 4, item 4. So we want you to have the same property with this. So something like this. So you can see how our calculator is looking. So, but there's no functionality. I can't click all these things and I can't see any of them. So there's no functionality. So with this, we have come to the end of this video. See you in the next one. Bye.